So like, all right, it's 9 o'clock. Hey guys, welcome to the Rabbit Show, and we're gonna judge youth Holland Lops tonight as part of the coronavirus virtual international Rabbit Show. We did Dutch earlier tonight, and that went off pretty well, and people got to kind of join in and watch some of the rabbits as comments were given. So we're gonna do the same thing tonight, and we posted an album earlier on the Rabbit Show page. It's called Youth Holland Lops from the Coronavirus Show. And hopefully you got a chance to look at some of those photos because we're going to go through them now. They were in no particular order in that album. I'm going to put them in order to watch them on screen so you can actually compare how I placed them to how you would have gone through if you were evaluating them. So number one, if you have not already gone through the album and you want to test your judging against my own, I would recommend looking at that album before you watch this live feed, because I'm going to go through right now each of those rabbits and show you where I put them, and then give some oral comments as to how I would place them. So if you have not already done so, check out the albums labeled, it's called Youth Holland Lops for the Coronavirus Virtual International Show. In there are about 75 Holland Lops in this youth class. It's a really big class. And check out those photos before you watch this video. This video is live now, but it will be posted indefinitely on the Rabbit Show page, so you can watch it anytime and compare how you would have judged them to me. And it's been like 3 weeks without a Rabbit Show, so maybe I'm getting a little rusty and I lost my skill. So compare your skills and your experience to how I would have done it. We're getting a lot of these virtual Rabbit shows going right now on Facebook, and it's gotten a lot of good press. And of course, there's some criticisms too, and I had criticisms to them in the beginning too. But like, well, this is not really real judging. It's not like a show. You can't feel them. How are you gonna check the undercolor and the texture and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely, you're totally right. But here we are stuck in our literally around the world. This is the first Rabbit Show that have combined rabbits and entries from across the world. We had judges from Australia. We had judges in England, United States, and we all came together to put on this international show as judges and collaborate with our own perspectives from where we are in the world in a time when we're all suffering. We are all not at rabbit shows this weekend and many weekends, unfortunately, ahead of us as shows around us are being canceled. So this international show and all other virtual ones, hats off to anyone that organizes them. This show is organized by David Mull and his crew at the Ohio-Michigan State Line Club. They put on the very famous Christmas show every year. David is a very progressive mind, and he put together this show for us, all of us, because we are all suffering and stuck at home. So thank you, David, and your crew for your insight, and hats off to anyone else that has put a virtual show online. I think it's a great way to build morale and spirit and get people off of thinking about what is constantly on the news, and that is that coronavirus. So we hate coronavirus, we hate being stuck at home, and we are very positive that hopefully in the near future we'll be returning to what we normally do on weekends, and that is get together at rabbit shows. So guys, thanks for your endless spirit, and for even just an hour getting us off what's all over the news and the tragedy. Second objective for these virtual shows like this one is to learn. And we put together this live feed now, as well as the Dutch earlier, so you can judge along and look at photos. And you know what? Hey, we're stuck at home. What better opportunity to learn about rabbits and our hobby and fine-tune our skills, maybe study for a registrar test or a judge exam. So use this opportunity to put your energy on things that you've been wanting to do, like study and learn. So this is a good opportunity. And like I said, this video is going to be on the Rabbit Show Facebook page indefinitely. Check it out. Compare the album of Holland Lops called Youth Holland Lops, and compare what you think to my rusty Rabbit Show in 3 weeks. I want to also give a shout out to Kate Smith. She's sitting behind me. That's ARBA Judge 1000. She went through all of the photos that the kids put up from this Youth Holland Lops show, and she put them in a PowerPoint, so it was much easier for me to go through and evaluate them in a sequential order. And that's how you're going to view them in a second when I flip the screen to my computer. What else? So I think that's all I got to say. But thanks for joining in, guys. I hope that wherever you're stuck, you're doing rabbits and you're thinking positively about getting back to shows and being with all your friends, because we all miss each other, but we are all in this together. So without further ado, let's switch on over to youth Holland Lop judging. And by the way, we had, I think I said this already, about 75 or 76 entries in the youth Holland Lop show, and that's awesome. There was so many kids participating from around the country, and hats off to them for going for it. So the very first class, we had 20 solid senior bucks. It was the biggest class in the youth Holland Lop show. One more thing, guys, before I get started. Wherever you're watching from tonight in the world, in the country, post it on the comments here. Let us know where you guys are, because I think we got people watching from all over the live, or you're watching it tomorrow or next week. Do comment and tell everyone where you're watching from, because rabbits are a hobby that so many of us get to enjoy from all corners of the planet. All right, so 20 solid senior bucks. I am going to place 5. I'm going to give comments on all 20, okay? So I'm going to start down towards the end of the class. These are in no particular order, but they are the bottom end of the class. When we get to top 5, I will tell you what those are, and they will be in order right here. This guy is not going to compete with top 5 because he's kind of finer in bone, lower in headset. He's got a longer shoulder. He does have a nicely shaped ear. They're open, they're wide, they're round. They seem to be well furred. But for a senior buck in the Holland Lops, we'd like to think of them as like a bulldog. His head is kind of plain over his brow. He needs some more width between his eyes. The next one, which is also not going to place, is QU 945. He's kind of longer in body, longer in head shape and ears. He's short in body. That's just a good thing if you're a Holland Lop, but he needs more senior buck characteristics such as broadness of head and bone. Bone is monumental in this breed. MCN is going to go next, also a non-place. He's got some width of body. He's rather upright. He's got thick front legs, but I'm going to place him farther down based on his head. It's off in proportion. Holland Lops have a massive head in proportion to their shortness of body. And this guy has a rather small head for the amount of body he carries. I don't have a scale, I can't weigh him, but I bet he's closer towards the top of the weight scale. And if he is, then he should have a head that's kind of consistent with that, and it's not. Ears and crown are important. If you look at this picture right here, his ears are placed farther behind or back than his eyes. They need to be a little farther forward, so that sums up a what we call a slipped crown. So those things keep him down here in the no placement spot. BB1, also no place. It's a blue-eyed white buck in the solid senior buck class in the youth Holland Lop show. He's too fine in bone, has a rather low headset. You can tell here there's a hand in the photo, so it's harder for him to naturally sit because his head is not placed genetically high on his shoulder. So instead of having a high headset like Holland Lops, he has a rather low headset. He's got kind of a square head too. Ears are slipped farther back. We talked about slip crowns. He exemplifies that. But hey, it's a blue-eyed white, and I always say if I was going to be a rabbit, I would be a blue-eyed white because I love blue eyes. 133 or I-33 PJ is going to go next in the no placement of the solid senior bucks. He's got a lot of bone. He's massive, but he's longer limb, longer ears, longer face. His head is kind of rectangular in shape instead of being round. Head has several components. I like to say it has 3 significant components: size, shape, and set. He's got the size part. He probably has the set part, but he doesn't have the shape. The shape is longer. Next in the class is going to be K1, also non-placement in the solid senior bucks. He's short. He's upright, naturally elevated in his front end. He turns nicely over his top line, but he needs bone. He's rather fine, and you can look down here at his lower limbs too. You can see that he needs more shortness of limb as well as diameter, and that would have brought him farther along in the class. WLS47, also another non-placement. He has a lower headset. WLS47, no place. Kind of a low headset buck. Better head shape. Why is it doing that? Curvature over his brow. Better head to body proportion than some of the bucks we just looked at. He's got a nicely shaped ear, a good wide crown, but look at his front limb. They are closer together. They are not as widespread, so therefore he doesn't have the chest and with the front end that is ideal in a solid senior buck. Next is TE. He looks like a junior buck, and Holland Lops, they say you got to put him away, and they're like fine wine. They take some time to come back on the table as seniors to be competitive, and maybe this is one, I don't know, we're judging him by photo. Younger senior buck that just hasn't blossomed yet. Has a small head in proportion with his body. That said, he's upright. Front legs appear to be short in length. Ears have good openness. They're round, but they are slipped farther back on his head. Park is going to go next, and he's another one that looks like a young senior buck, if not a junior. Finer bone. He's got an odd pose, maybe a little bit of overposing for this photo, so it's hard to gauge what's going on with his top line. He does have good curvature into his cheeks, but kind of plainer brow. A good ear length, but it is slipped back on his head. Another no placement is 8S70. He's upright, probably has a natural headset, but his head is longer and protruded right down here in his muzzle, and that takes away some of the roundness that the Holland Lop breed calls for. His ears kick back. They're less than perpendicular to his body because the crown is probably tighter or placed farther back, so it's causing the ears to be less than perpendicular or at a 90-degree angle with the body. And then while he's really deep in his shoulder, he slopes off because his peak is too far forward. He actually slides off into his rear. But we do give him credit for having good head size in proportion to his body as well as being upright. Next in the no placements is an EP1. I'm not quite sure what color this is. Maybe it's a really dark sable or washed out black. At any rate, he doesn't have some of the breed character that goes along with Holland Lops in terms of being competitive in a solid senior buck class. He's got a longer ear, longer face. So it's really front end that I'm going to knock him on. His body looks decent, actually. He's got a deep top line. He peaks nicely. Probably uniform on his sidelines. Some of this elevation, though, is due to a longer front leg because he's sitting farther up on limb than having his head placed higher on his shoulder. Next in this solid senior buck class is an HBL1, and he's, again, also a no placement, a little chestnut buck. He's another one that looks like a junior. He's short and compact. That's all great. You can get that in a senior buck, too, but this guy needs some head size and shape and scope to compete with the bucks at the very top. Again, on the body, he's short, peaks pretty well. It looks like he blends well on his sidelines. He even looks like he has a decently diameter front leg, but the bone that's evident in his front leg has not caught up, or it's not synonymous with the bone that you see in the skull, which would create size and scope and give him that senior buck kind of feel to him. Another no place is Gage. If we were placing this class, he probably would be closer towards the top 5. Rather than just calling him no place. He's short and upright. He has good bone. His ears are slipped pretty significantly back on his head. You can see this right here. Here's the eye, here's the ear, and I believe the standard reads something like the crown should be placed at the top of the back of the eye, which would be right here. So you have this region right here, which is a gap, and that causes the ear to slip farther back. So it's a fault in the breed. From looking at him from on a front end angle, he's a little bit plainer here in his brow, between his eyes. So for a senior buck, when I look at a solid senior buck, say at a convention, or what I expect to see as a winning solid senior buck, if you look at a really spectacular example of the breed, you're looking at them from the front, you don't see the eyes because they have such a wide brow that the eyes, it's not something you're going to see unless you look at them from the profile side. So this guy's got a little narrowness over his top. The best picture of this guy is from the rear. He is nicely built. He's super wide, carries his width all the way down into the lower table. He appears like he's probably pretty round from the profile side as well. So hats off to this exhibitor for posting that photo of this angle, because it really helps to give him some extra points and some credit where credit's due, and that's in his rear. Next is a CD924. He's an upright senior buck, but he's narrow front to back. He needs more width in his chest. His front legs are a little too long. He has a good top line. He's level right here from shoulder into his hips, and then he turns well over his hind quarter, rounds well into his lower body. But front end bone width of body is not as significant as it needs to be to compete competitive in a really big solid senior buck class. Next is B1. He's also going to be no placement, but he is towards the top of this class. If we were going to place him in order, he's upright, he's level in his top line. Some of that upright character is probably due to a front leg where he's being kind of overposed. So, just because they have a high headset in a photo doesn't necessarily mean that they have a genetically high headset if it's meaning cranking them up, by their head and then getting them to sit. Ideally, the head needs to set naturally on the shoulder because of structure, not by posing. He has a nicely shaped cheek. It's round. It's rather broad, and then he's got a good curvature over his brow. He needs a little more width right here between his eyes and over his nose. And next in the class is an HB15. Where are my results? Oh, here it is. So HB15 is actually 5th place. So now we're going to start placing this class 1 through 5, or 5 through our first place. And hats off to anyone that's in the top 5 in any of these classes, but this one in particular, because the Solid Senior Bucks had 20 competing. It's the biggest class today in the youth Holland Lops. So 5th place is HB15. Profile is really strong, and that's what caught my attention, while I was going through these photos and kind of judging these rabbits. He's very deep, naturally set, peaks nicely, rounds well over his profile. He's short in body. He has a nicely tufted crown. But I place him 5th based on the other ones, or against the top 4 based on his front. And if you look at his front, he's a little narrow here in his chest. He gets narrower here between his eyes and over his nose. So maybe he's a younger senior buck. At any rate, he doesn't have this broadness and head shape that is synonymous with a solid senior buck, that's had some time to develop. T3 is our 4th place buck. Upright. He's rather deep in his shoulder. He kind of slides off a little bit in his rear. I use that as a criticism against him when I compared him to top 3. But he beats top 4 on his head, our 5th place buck, on his head shape and size. It's rather large. He's got more width right here between his eyes. Front legs are placed nicely. They're wide, they're natural, but they are a little bit on the finer side. They need to be a bit broader and thicker in diameter. Okay, we are ready to check out top 3. CS66 is our 3rd place solid senior buck in this youth show. He's got a lot going for him. He's short and upright. Look at his front legs. They're like little stumpy tree trunks. And they're wide set. He's got a wide shoulder. Looking at him from the rear, these are wonderful photos, by the way. Really easy to assess him and give him credit. He's got a really uniform sideline. Holland Lops, when you get your hands on them front to back, they can taper a little bit, but in the ideal world, I think they should be almost equal from shoulder to midsection to hips in width of body. And this guy really excels in that. I'm going to knock him against 1 and 2 on his head. It's a little bit plain from the profile side. He could use a little more broadness over his nose and in between his eyes, but the body, the bone, ear set, those things have brought him to the top of the class. So he beat 17 other bucks in this class. And we're down to top 2. G19 is 2nd place. And I really wish this photo had a little better quality to it. But even with that said, this photo right here says a lot. He looks like a senior buck. He's got a big old head. It's really round from the profile side, over the brow. Probably has a good fat cheek. Ears are open. They're wide. They are kicked back in terms of placement of crown. Top line looks really strong. He's short, elevated. There's a hand in this photo, but it does not look like it's actually holding the head. So maybe just like moving away after he was posed. But naturally high headset, round and deep over his top. There's a little bit of a shadow here. I'm wondering if this may be a weaker shoulder, something that we can't definitively say in a virtual online judging. But those things are going to keep him at number 2. And then the class winner is AB3. So 1st place, congratulations, in our solid senior buck class. In the youth show, there were 20 competing. That's AB3. He's a blue tort senior buck. And look at how natural he is. There's no hand in this photo. He's sitting there naturally with a high headset. He's got short, stumpy front legs, a short, level top line. Peaks nicely over his hips. From this profile, or from this over-the-top photo here, we can see that the sidelines don't taper. That's a good thing. We just talked about what width of body in Holland Lops should look like. It should not taper significantly. Tapers maybe a little bit. And then look at this. This is a classic Holland Lop senior buck head. It's massive. He's got fat cheeks, a really wide brow. If you looked at him from the front, you would have probably a difficult time seeing his eyes because he carries so much structure and width of skull. He also has a very nicely tufted crown. Tufting means, the furring on top of the crown. It appears to be a wide crown, but it is slipped a touch, and that's why the ear hangs at this off angle. It's not perpendicular to the body. It kind of wings back a little bit, but that nominal difference does not separate him enough from the other bucks to make him anything but first. He's certainly a worthy buck, so congratulations to 1st place solid senior buck in this class of 20. That's AB3. And don't forget, guys, the album of these rabbits is in the photo section of the Rabbit Show page. The classes are organized by class, but not in any particular order in terms of quality. So if you haven't had a chance, check out that album, put them in order how you would, and then maybe go back later and check out this live feed. It won't be a live feed later, but it'll be a saved video, and you can compare how you would judge them to how I did. All right, next class. We have 10 solid senior does, also another competitive class. And we're going to start down here with our 10th place doe. No, that's not 10th, sorry. This is what I did. I lied. I placed top 5 again. But 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are not in any particular order. We're going to call them no place, just for easiness and fluidity of this video. Twit is no place out of 10. She is rather upright, but finer boned. Ears kick back too far because of her slipped crown, and she has a rather plain head. She's actually wider here in her cheeks than she is over her brow. She's a pretty color and probably has good length of fur. LU is next. She's not going to place. She's short. She has good head to body proportion. There's a shadow right here. I imagine that if I was feeling her, she would taper more significantly front to back in terms of width of body, so her sidelines would not be as uniform as ideal in a Holland Lop. She has a nicely tufted crown. Ears are pendulous, and they are perpendicular to her body, so give her some credit there. One of the other does that's not going to place is going to be RR2. She's a lovely doe in terms of head shape. She's got a good brow, fat cheeks, short, stumpy front legs. Looks like she's having a good time here in her wicker basket. And her body appears to slope a little bit, maybe a little narrower in her front end. Those things keep her from competing with top 5. But head shape is good, and we certainly appreciate a good head and a Holland Lop. Another doe that's not going to place in this solid senior doe class is KHF27. She's naturally upright, I think. Maybe naturally, maybe not. Maybe she's a little overposed right here with her front legs. At any rate, we can criticize these front legs on being too close to each other. Holland Lops need to have a wide chest. They should look like a bulldog from the front. And when their legs are really close like this, they don't have quite that appeal in width of body. So those things are going to combine in making her not as competitive with our top does in the class. And then Maple, she's another doe that's not going to place, but we'll still give her some comments. She looks like a doe that's upright, natural head sat, but she slopes a lot in her rear end. Her high point is actually too far forward right here. It needs to be farther back over here, and that would give her better roundness and top line, and that would have made her more competitive in the class. Nonetheless, she has a good curvature to her brow. She appears to have good cheeks and probably good bone. Her crown is significantly slipped back on her head. There's a big gap here between the ear base and the eye, and that equates to a slip crown. So Maple doesn't go any farther. Okay, we're going to look at top 5 now in our solid senior doe class in the Youth Holland Lop show. And top 5, our 5th place, is TA2. She's a good-looking doe. This was a tough group to look at in top 5, and you'll see why in a second. TA2 is a rather upright doe. She's really wide-chested. This front-end picture certainly caught my eye right away. Her front legs are really wide in terms of placement. They're stumpy in length, as good bone should be. Good bone, and a Holland Lop should be thick. It should be short. And then on the body, it should appear wide in terms of placement of front legs. It looks like she's got a pretty good head in terms of width, but maybe it's longer than it is wide, so she lacks some of the roundness. And that's too evident up here in this photo here. So that's going to keep her from competing with 4th place, who goes to, is it DF, maybe 465? By the way, these are the easiest tattoos I've ever read in my life. And I just get to look at the print up here. It's so easy. So DF 465 is our 4th place solid senior doe. She's short, she's compact, she's upright, she's really nicely rounded. She's got a good brow. My guess she's on the younger side of things, so she hasn't broadened out her head shape. She could use a little more bone and width in her lower body to compete with our other does. Crown is a little bit kicked back, and though it looks good in this photo, what ends up happening is when they wing forward like this, it's because the crown is set farther back, and it's a bit of an illusion. You'd have to like take your finger and kind of push that ear back to see that there probably is a gap here, which is causing her to be a little bit slipped in crown. All right, let's take a look at our top 3 solid senior does. 3rd is L. She's got a lot of shortness of body. Looks like she's got good bone. Look at this fat, stumpy. Those are great things. Nicely shaped head that's upright, it's elevated, has good proportion. I'm going to knock her a little bit on ears. They look like there's maybe a tightness to the crown, which causes her ears to wing out a little bit on the sides. If you have a wider crown, that causes the ears to be less in control, let's say, by the rabbit. When the crown is tighter, the ears tend to wing out. But my gosh, look at that brow. It's really wide set in between her eyes into her brow. Lovely doe. She could use a little more furring on her crown too if we're going to be critical. Okay, second place in this class. And these two does at the top, actually top three, were really tough to place. RKA is ultimately going to be second. She is a lovely conditioned doe. First of all, it doesn't mean a whole lot in the breed. There are not a lot of condition points, but when you see it, it's worth mentioning. Her coat looks very uniform and nicely presented. But those things are important, but not so much as what else is great about her, and that's her type. She is short, she's natural, she's upright, lovely width to her brow. She carries that all the way between her eyes into a fat, round cheek. Unfortunately, all four of the photos have her at a little bit of an angle, so I can't exactly assess what's going on with her crown. If it's slipped, my indication and kind of gut tells me the crown is a little bit slipped, not as significantly as some of the other does in the class, but it is going to be a little bit of a fault. Also, her front legs appear to be a little longer than ideal. You see it in this photo especially. They're extended out and they kind of push out. So those are some small faults, not enough to keep her other than, towards the top of the top of the class. But those separate her from our number one doe. This is an awesome doe. Certainly one I wish I could judge in person, because she is a quintessence of a solid senior doe. Holland Lop, that's SS 51. She just built like a tank or what? She's upright, she's natural. There are no hands in this photo. Whoever owns this rabbit or bred this rabbit or exhibited and photographed it, there's probably not a lot of work they need to do to get her to sit like this in a photo, because she's just so well made. She's thick set, probably very uniform in her sidelines. She's got a ton of width, even all the way down into her lower body. Combine that with a good top line where she's really round from the profile side. These are hard things to do. We just looked at 10 senior does, and only a couple of them were able to pull this stuff off back here. She's awesome. A very nicely tufted crown that looks like it has decent placement, wide cheeks, short, stumpy front legs that are placed really wide apart. She's got a lot of breed character going for her. So that is our first place solid senior doe in the youth class here at the Coronavirus International Virtual Rabbit Show. And I'm sure I keep interchanging virtual and international, so bear with me, but you know where guys are at. We are going to move on to our solid junior buck class. This is really kind of a sad judgment of juniors. Not sad to judge the juniors, but to think about, the kids have been breeding their rabbits all last fall and winter, and they made juniors for the spring season, which of course now we don't have any shows to take them to. So this is a beautiful class of junior bucks that we're going to take a look at. There are 7 competing, and hats off to these kids who worked really hard, I'm sure all winter long, to prepare their rabbits and make better juniors for the show season, which of course has been put on some serious hold due to this stupid coronavirus. Okay, 7 junior bucks competing. I'm going to place 5 and no place 2. This one is going to be a no place. That's HL01. Looks like a Siamese sable if you guys are learning color. You can see the dark ears, dark muzzle, and then dark extremities on the feet and legs, but otherwise a rather light body. Anyway, he's going to be no place because he's off in some of his character. He's got front legs that are closer together. He needs a little more bone. He could also use shortness of muzzle and more roundness of head. He tends to be longer and squarer in his muzzle. Ears have good shape. They look like they're well furred, and they're probably pretty thick if we could touch them. Another no place in the junior buck class in our solids is B1. He's cute from the front. My gosh, like cute in terms of face. I mean, you're not going to find the word cute in the standard. I know I've been criticized for using it before when I judge Holland Lops, but when you see a really good Holland Lop, they're just cute, right? This guy's cute. He's got a fat little face, great cheeks, good bone and front end, but he probably is very young. His head is off in proportion to his body. It's rather small, so he hasn't kind of caught up yet. There's some skin showing on his ears because they're probably a little thinner, at least in furring and substance. Sometimes that goes with age. Sometimes that goes with genetics, and a lot of times it goes with both. But at the moment, the ears are thinner and showing more skin than fur and substance, so he's going to be in no place. Next in the junior buck class is LP2, and now we're going to begin placing. So this guy is 5th place out of 7 in the solid junior bucks. He's a sable point buck. He's got some bone. He is he's got a lot of maturity for a junior buck. He's probably closer to the 6-month mark. He's had some time to excel in head size, good curvature over his brow. He's got a good top line. He's 5th, though, based on his front end, and this is where I knock him compared to our top 4. His head is longer than it is wide, so it lacks some roundness. You don't see quite the width here and breadth of skull between his eyes that we're going to see towards the top of the class. He does have good bone, though, in terms of diameter. They maybe are on the longer side, and they could be wider placed. Top four in our solid junior bucks. Top 4 is AC1, short and compact, upright, high head set. He's got good head to body proportion. Really appreciate this part right here, that crown. It looks like it's high, it's well furred, it's tufted, it's placed pretty well. So why is he 4th, right? He's 4th because it looks like he's got a lower headset. He's showing a little more length of limb in these, actually all 3 photos, and he could also be a little wider set right here in his front legs and front end. Otherwise, though, those are great things about him. The tufted crown, the shortness of body, and high headset and fat cheeks are certainly traits to look for when assessing junior bucks. 3rd is Cap, CAP. Cute little guy, right? Great cheeks, very, very round, fat, full cheeks, good brow, good bone. They could be a little wider in placement. Appears to have a good top line in terms of shortness. Maybe peaks a little sooner and slides off a touch back here. Maybe his highest point is closer towards his shoulder. So I'll combine that with maybe a little bit of a slipped crown to make him 3rd. We've got 2 very powerful bucks to look at in 1 and 2. So, and 3rd certainly gave those 2 a run for their money too. So hats off to the exhibitor for bringing this one up. He hopefully he's got a good career ahead of him once we get shows going again. HF5 is 2nd. Very high quality buck. Short, compact, upright. He's got a very wide crown. Allows his ears to open from base to tip. Fat cheeks. Superb brow. Looks like a little light bulb sitting there on the top of his brow. Stumpy front legs. He's short and compact. If you look down here, his hock kind of kicks out. That's because he's probably pinched. So when you're pinched, you've got like a V carriage to your back legs. If we flipped him over, these the back toes and the hock would kick out, and the base of the hock, or like equivalent to our heel, would be closer together. So I'm going to use my virtual powers to say that he's probably pinching his lower hip, and that's why I'm going to separate him with this guy, who, by the way, has given us this awesome photo to assess lower hindquarter on. So 1st place in the solid junior buck class is RL23, and while we're on that subject, let's talk about it right now. These are the placement of back legs, and they're parallel, they're wide set, they're in line with the sidelines of the body. That means he's got a lot of natural width in his lower hip, as you can see right here looking at his rear, right? His back legs are shaped like this. They're parallel with the body. They're wide set, and thus that gives him width of lower body. So if you were to run your hands down this guy, your hands would probably not taper from the top of his body all the way down to the table side. So he's very nicely built in his rear end, and he's got a good front end too. Short, stumpy front legs are wide set. He's got great cheeks, a good brow. He's a junior, so he's still filling out right here over his brow in terms of width. This portion right here needs to be as wide as the lower muzzle. That would give him more roundness. I'm being really critical, but he gets a little bit of a pass because he's a junior, and he's still certainly deserving of being 1st place. So RL23 is 1st place, solid junior buck in the youth show. Congratulations to that exhibitor, and really hats off to the exhibitor for putting this photo together, because you can learn a lot about your rabbits by simply flipping them over and naturally looking at where their legs are, and that says a lot about how they actually feel at the same time. So congrats. All right, we're going to move on to the last solid class in our Holland Lops show. That's our junior doe class. We have 11 competing, another big class. Again, these kids probably prepared all fall and winter, bred their does, got up in the middle of the night and checked on litters in the freezing cold, all trying to build up their juniors for a show season that was swept away from us. Go on. This one? Yep. Okay, so we have 11 solid junior does competing. I'm going to, again, place 5, give comments on everyone. HL02 is a no place in the junior does. She appears to be kind of longer in front end. Her head is smaller in proportion with her body. Maybe a little bit of a lower headset. And this photo right here is evidence of probably her length of body. She needs to be a little bit shorter to compete with the does ahead of her. Hats off to the exhibitor for showing us this photo. That's flipping the rabbit over, and so we can assess the legs. And these legs are kind of V-shaped, right? They're not parallel like the buck we just looked at in the last class. They're kicked out a little bit up here in the toes, and the hocks at their heel are closer together. So if we actually felt this rabbit when it sits, she's probably a little bit pinched. So thank you very much to that exhibitor for taking that photo. That really helps us to evaluate them Next in the class that we're not going to place is an HP19 Junior Doe. She's just kind of long, and unfortunately these photos don't probably do her justice, so they don't really help us because they're blurry. There's not a lot of photo for us to look at, unfortunately, but what can we say? She's got some depth to her color, probably. Yeah, good substance to her ear. She looks like she's happy there sitting on the chair, right? Another no place is going to be Map, M-A-P. Cute doe in front end, right? Wide-chested, naturally high head set. She's got a lot of diameter to her front legs, but she's got a head that's a little bit smaller in proportion to her body. Ears kick back a little bit in terms of carriage, and that's more evident up here. With that said, the ears tend to be rounded at their tips. They're well furred, and that's a cute little chestnut doe, but a no place. Another no place in our solid junior does is LCI or LC1. We keep saying short, right? So when you're long, that's not a good thing. This doe has longer front legs. She's got a longer shape to her muzzle, and those things work against you in the Holland Lops when you need to be short in every regard. So we're gonna knock her on length of body. Next is gonna be an Ewok, and she is also a no place, but there's some good things about her. She would be towards the upper end of this class if we placed 1 through 11. She's very wide, first of all. If you look at her from the rear, appreciate this photo that the exhibitor took so we can assess the rear end and width and sidelines of body. She's very wide, but when you look at her from the front, she actually maybe gets narrower. Her front legs are closer together. Oops. Crown seems to be placed well. I imagine there's a shadow here because her body tapers more in her front end. She's got a really wide butt, but she's probably narrower fronted. So I'm going to kind of use my psychic abilities to use that as a scoring for her against her, unfortunately. Solo is next. She's still we're not placing yet, but she's a no place. She's got good curvature over her brow, a wide set crown, but it's actually slipped farther back on her head. That's what's causing the ears to wing forward instead of being perpendicular to her body. Ideal placement of crown is at the top of the back of the eye. Hers is farther back, and then it pushes like this. And I learned that trick from Alan Harvey in Australia. He's a judge. He came out and worked with us at a show in Ventura, and I said, "Oh, Alan, look at this crown! It's so awesome!" And he's like, "Oh, Alan, you're just falling for the misperception." But in reality, the crown was slipped so far back that the ears winged down. I don't mean to focus on this doe so heavily because she's actually a good doe, but it's sometimes an illusion when you see ears like this and you think, "Oh, they're great in placement," but in reality, the crown is all the way back here and it pushes the ears forward, so it's still a slipped crown. She's short in body. She's probably as long as she is deep as she is wide, so that's a good thing. It'd be a shame to not be able to judge her in person. Okay, we're going to look at top 5 in our solid junior does. Petal is 5th. She's short. She's upright. Maybe slides off a little bit in her rear. Her high point needs to be farther back over the top of her hip. She does have good fat cheeks. I'm going to knock her in her crown. It's farther back, and again, another doe that pushes her ears forward because the crown is slipped back on her head. Good diameter to her bone, but the front legs need to be wider and set. RL24 is 4th. Short. She's rather upright. Natural, wide-chested. Front legs are a little longer. She's got good cheeks, but maybe square right here in her brow. She's a junior, so she hasn't had time to round out and grow this area where she's really done a good job on her lower cheeks. Hats off to the exhibitor for posting these 2 photos. First of all, we can check out the back legs. They are parallel with each other, so she's not going to be pinched. They may be a little closer than ideal, maybe not as in line with her sidelines, but nonetheless, they are parallel. They do not kick out. And then this is a really great photo to have down here in the lower left because you can assess her from the top, and she does not appear to taper very much from her shoulders to her midsection to her hips. That's a great thing. And also, we can look at this crown from over the top. It's really wide, front to back, like this, and side to side, and well furred. So good job to her. That was our 4th place solid junior doe. All right, guys, let's take a look at top 3. This is an awesome class, by the way, I have to say. Top 5, maybe the deepest class in the whole breed. So if you've got a rabbit in this class, way to go. They were beautiful, and I'm sure they were bred for this show season, and there was a lot of anticipation, I'm sure, behind them and getting them to the table. So thanks for bringing them all for all of us to look at and watch and learn from. 3rd place is RL19, short, compact, upright. She's really round. She shows a lot of Holland Lot breed character. Look at how wide she is from the rear, too. She's got a big old butt on her. I'm going to knock her in comparison to 1 and 2 based on her crown. Well, it seems to be placed correctly. It's tight, and that's what's causing her ears to not really airplane, but she has more control of her ears than ideal. And if you've judged junior Holland Lop does before, or if you've raised them, you know that those old ladies sometimes have the flightiest little attitudes and love to wing their ears out. And she's kind of doing that here in her photo because she has more control of her ears because her crown hasn't developed yet. Whether it will or not, I'm not sure, but it's not as wide set, and that's what causes her ears to kick out along with her little attitude. So solid junior does are always a challenge, but they're certainly cute and one of the most competitive classes to look at wherever you're judging Holland Lops. Second place is RL21, very similarly made doe, right? If we look at her and we compare her to third, these does could be like cookie cutter images. This doe is second over third because she's got a little more bone to her. Look at those front legs. She's got a ton of power from the front. She's naturally set there, good wide lower hips. Looking at her from over top, she maybe tapers right here into her shoulders, so she probably doesn't have the blending and uniformity and sidelines that our class winner has, and you'll take a look at her in a second. But this area right here, if you were to get your hands on her, she probably tapers. She's probably a little bit narrower in her shoulders, and you can also see it here in this shadow here. And then our number one doe. Back legs, great photo, parallel, wide set, so she's got a butt from top to bottom, and that's important. Nicely shaped crown in terms of width. It could use a little more furring. Ears have good length. They taper a touch towards the lower end of them. They could be a little rounder, maybe a little thicker. Lovely shape to her head and profile. This is a really awesome doe. And then our class winning doe, congratulations, RL25. First place out of 11 solid junior does. And is she not very similar or what to the does we just looked at? She's cookie cutter. She's short. She's upright. She's massive. She's got great bone. Look at her from the rear end. She's almost as uniform from the table side as she is in width over her hips into her loin. This is a very nicely built doe. There isn't a human hand in the photo because the exhibitor has posed her, stepped back, and taken the picture, and she's just sat there on her own because that's the way she is. She's gorgeous. Front legs are thick in diameter. She's wide-chested. She's got fat cheeks that are in line with the width of the brow, causing roundness. So when you have a head that's as tall as it is wide, you get roundness, so you get uniformity. When depth of head equals width of head, we don't talk about that, but it's kind of an Allenism. If you have depth of head that's equal to width of head, you have roundness of head. And roundness of head in this breed, as well as Jersey Woolies and Fuzzy Lops and Netherland Dwarfs, is really important. She also appears to have good ears and placement, wide set crown. We talk about placement of crown being at the top of the back of the eye. She wings out a little bit, but pushes out a little bit in terms of placement of ear. It could be a little more perpendicular, but it's not far off. She's superb. Congratulations to the exhibitor who owns RL25 for being first place in the solid junior doe class. I'm sorry?
54. 54.
My secretary behind me, Kate, is telling me to go to slide 54.
Right there. So.
Okay, I did not know she did this. Thank you, Kate. Let's review solid first place winners. Wow, Kate is really awesome, which we know. First place solid senior buck was AB3. Remember, he was first place in that class of 20. He has a big, massive skull, great brow, crown, ear. He's short, compact, and naturally set, worthy of a first place. In our solid senior does, we remember this doe, right? She's built like a tank. Great big butt on her. She's round, uniform on her sidelines. She's level on her top line, nicely tufted and placed crown, and then tops it off with a really nicely shaped head. And she's got great bone. She's massive. She's a quintessence of a solid senior doe. First place in the solid junior buck was RL23. If you remember this guy, he was short and upright. And then we really praised him back here. We flipped him over, or we flipped her over, or him over. And the back legs are parallel and in line with the sidelines. And that's evident here when you look at him from the rear. Great little buck. And then, of course, the doe we just looked at, solid junior doe, who was first place, RL25. Good bone, short, upright, massive, man. She's a gorgeous doe. I'm sure the exhibitor is totally bummed that they can't take her out to the shows this spring because she's just fabulous. Great cheeks. Okay, guys, we are going to pick best of variety now, and I've already gone through these and done this, so whether you commented on the album or not, I didn't read the comments because I had already gone through them a little bit earlier tonight. Best opposite sex of variety is going to be the junior buck we just talked about. That's the one with the really parallel back legs that are wide set. He's got super bone, good little head on him. So he beats the solid senior buck for anything buck related in the solid youth division tonight. So solid junior buck goes best opposite sex of variety. Congratulations to RL23. And then best of variety, I can't say enough things about her. That is the solid junior doe we just talked about in the class of junior does. She's just exquisite. Short, upright, wide-chested. She's really round. Lovely doe. Congratulations to this best of variety winner in our youth Holland Lop division tonight. We are going to now move on to our brokens. If you guys are studying rabbits and you don't raise Holland Lops, take home tonight is to learn that Holland Lops are shown in brokens and solids. And then there's lots and lots of colors that break up the solids, but they are not judged by color. All the colors are lumped together into solids. And then if you're broken, well, then you're broken, right? So the Broken Senior Buck class is the class that's going to open our broken tonight. We have 6 competing. And I will place 1 through 6 because there are only 6. Actually, no. Yes, I am. So 6th place. If I was gonna disqualify or could see this rabbit in person, I believe it's a torted try. Torted try is try in combination with tort. I have Alan Rafferty here with me as well. He's an ARBA judge and he's my genetics expert. So Alan Rafferty, what do you say about torted tries? What does that mean?
Usually they're carrying both the tort gene, the non-extension small recessive gene, plus the EJ gene for Japanese, which gives them that muted, torted effect, especially on the muzzle. You can notice that they're not crisp and clear in the markings, they're more blended, they have more of a muzzle butterfly marking like a tort, that then becomes more spotted as the rabbit.
Do you guys see that? That what Alan Rafferty just said is that the muzzle is a really good indication of where to check for color in tries and to see whether or not they're torted, which is a combination of tort or not. And you can see this butterfly marking is made up of a lighter shade. It almost looks chocolate or tort, and the rabbit is clearly not chocolate or tort because there are black spots back here, which is indicative of a black try, right?
Blurrier.
And then down here, there's this kind of blurriness here. That's if you were a solid tort, you would kind of blur down here in your shading and pattern of color. So I can't disqualify rabbits on the computer, but a take home from this, if you're learning, is that try is recognized. Unfortunately, when try is combined with shaded instead of
combined with tort.
Right, well, combined with tort instead of black, blue, or chocolate or lilac, it's a disqualification. So, anyway, we're gonna make him 6 in this class. That's Finn. He's kind of got a lower head set, finer bone, ears kicked back because the crown is tighter. Next, 5th place is PFR2. He is lower in headset. You can see the exhibitors using a hand here to help elevate him. Just because you're a Holland Lop doesn't mean that you're born with a high headset. It's one of the paramount features of the breed. It's something that breeders work and strive for. It's not just a posing aspect. It is a genetic, structural aspect of the breed. And sometimes, Holland Lops don't have it, and they have a low headset, and that's just not indicative of a show, a top show winning Holland. So this guy's got a low headset. He is wide from the rear. If we look at him from the hips, he has got a lot of width all the way to the table, and that's evident too in the shape and placement of his back legs. Okay, looking at 4 guys left. 4th is Tully. He's a broken chestnut. He's short and upright, nicely rounded over his top line. He appears to have good head to body proportion. The crown is wide. My criticism is that there's a hand in every photo here, which tells me that he's probably got a lower headset. So we need to, the hand is going in the photo to help elevate him instead of he sitting there naturally. So that's going to be a criticism against him. This is virtual rabbit show judging. We're not getting our hands on him. So I have to use what I'm given to assess them. And I'm going to use the fact there's a hand in 4 of the photos to say that he probably has a low headset, and I'm going to use that as a detriment against him, because I would use that as a detriment against him on the show table. This is also a senior buck class, and he looks more like a junior. He's got a kind of a smaller head. It's a nicely shaped head, but for a senior, he needs to be broader and have more bone and substance. Okay? 3rd place in our broken senior buck class goes to AE. He's a good-looking buck. He's natural. He's upright. He's got good head-to-body proportion. The ears are pendulous. They're perpendicular to his body. Appears like he has good bone. His head is a little bit longer than it is wide. And that gives or takes away some of the roundness, especially over his brow and in between his eyes. So I'm going to use those things to knock him against our 1st and 2nd. He also maybe slides off a little bit quickly in the placement of his top line. but a very wide-chested buck with good bone, and those are really important things if you are a Holland Lop senior buck. BMAR is second place in the broken senior buck class. He's short, he's upright, he seems to be natural in his headset. Really round brow, rounds nicely into his cheeks. Front legs are wide set, they maybe are a little longer than ideal. And I'm going to use that as a criticism against him when I place him against number 1. And this is our class winner. He's fantastic. This guy is a really exquisite example of not just a broken Holland Lop, but of the breed. If when you think of a Holland Lop, when I think of one, I think of a bulldog. I think of a massive rabbit in a small 4-pound or less package. And this guy really sums that up nicely. He's got bare paw, front legs, wide-chested. He's got fat jowls that round then below his jawline, and that gives him this really round appeal from the front of his head. And that is incredibly important to the breed. If the average person saw this rabbit and they didn't know anything about rabbits, they probably would be attracted to him because he's so unique looking. So really hats off to this winner. That's SC11 as our first place broken senior buck in the youth Holland Lop division. Okay, next we're going to move on to broken senior does. There are 6 competing. And by the way, when we judge Holland Lops at a real show or a virtual show, brokens tend to have less numbers than solid. Solid classes tend to be a lot bigger than broken classes. Even when you go to some of the big shows like conventions and national shows, brokens tend to be smaller in numbers, but their quality can still be outstanding. And brokens have won a lot of big shows and competed very, very well with solids. So just because there are less of them does not mean by any regard that their quality is less. We have 6 competing. I guess we'll talk about all 6. 6 will be a BB, B2. And these are senior does. So a senior doe should have bone and mass, and she tends to have a small head, a rather refined front leg. It appears like she kicks out in her hock because she may be narrow underneath, and she's kind of narrow right here in her front end. She does have a high headset. She sits there naturally on her own. And if you're learning about colors, she is a broken sable point. Yes, she's on the darker side of things, but Holland Lops don't have a lot of points on color. So the breeders don't spend a lot of time focusing on it. So there may be a spectrum of color and quality, and it's one of the last things that we consider when we're judging Holland Lops is the quality of color. As long as it's a recognized color, then we're usually pretty cool with it, unless it's maybe at a convention or a big national show where we have to get down to the nitty-gritty. 5th place in our broken senior does is ABY. And maybe hard to see from this photo, but I believe she's a broken chin, maybe darker in color. But again, color is not that important in the breed. We're not going to focus on it. She is 5th place against the other does because she kind of slides off right here in her rear end. She needs to have a high point more centered over the center of her hips. She kicks out a little bit in her lower hocks. She's got a big body, and then this head is a little bit smaller, plainer, and squarer over here where the muzzle and the ears kick farther back on her head. Meanwhile, they are perpendicular to the body. They're straight up and down. They're not winged out side to side or off, facing the back side of her body, but they are too far back. If we put our finger here, probably a thumb, I always say like a thumbnail too far back. I would probably use that if I was actually judging her in person. All right, 4th place in our broken senior doe class goes to PE. She's short, she's upright, she's got a nicely shaped head, but she's a little bit of a narrower doe in her front end. Front legs are finer in their diameter. She's showing daylight. That's not a good thing because daylight is shown in full arch breeds, and when we overpose compact breeds like Holland Lops, we get daylight. So she's overextended because of her front legs, and she's showing daylight like more of a petite. With that said, she's looks like she's in great condition. Really appreciate her head shape and size, especially in her cheeks. 3rd place broken senior doe is 825. Another doe that sits naturally. Just look at her. She's got a good top line. She's short. She's upright. Ears are perpendicular to the body. Thank you, exhibitor, for this photo, which demonstrates the width and parallel placement of back legs, which demonstrates width of body. And then look right here. Those back legs underneath are doing this from the rear side. That's wide hips all the way to the table. So she's very full. If we were to get our hands on her, which I wish we could, she would feel probably very full all the way to the table. So why is she 3rd, and why is she getting, why is she not competing with 1st and 2nd? I'm going to criticize her here on her front end. Her head is a little bit narrower. It's longer than it is wide, so she lacks some of that roundness. The head is more of a rectangular shape. So that is going to be her detriment in comparison to our 2nd place and 1st place doe. 2nd place is GE. Another really wide doe. She's very similar to third place doe in the width and shape of her hips. Look at these wide setback legs. My gosh, they're parallel, they're wide. You can get a whole hand back here, right? That's a good thing. That's evident when we look at her sitting naturally from the rear. She's upright. She's got a little better head shape than our third place doe. With that said, she could still use a little bit of width right here between her eyes. This is a senior doe class, so we expect broadness and a little bit of a larger head in proportion with the body. Her head's a little small in proportion with her body. Ears kind of kick back a little bit. They wing back just a touch in carriage. With that said, they are better placed than some of the other does we looked at in the class. And then our class-winning doe in our broken senior does is H2, short, upright, level, good bone. I would call this doe an easy class winner. And she is one that really nails crown placement. These ears, the crown, let's just talk about it. The crown is the base of the ear, right? So if you have a proper crown, you start or help the ear start in the right position, the right shape. If you have a crown that's narrow, you're going to have a folded ear base and a rather narrow ear base. But if you have a really wide crown like this doe does, that opens up, that segues what's going to go on with the shape of her ear. And she certainly has a wide ear into her interior, and then she finishes off with a really nicely rounded tip. This doe excels in head shape and size, very round from the profile side. I wish we had a photo of her from the front end like we did on a lot of the other does, but I'm still confident enough to place this doe first based on these photos. I'm sure she's not narrow from the front. This rear end shot here shows a really wide set doe, so she's probably doing the same thing up front. And by the way, this aerial shot here of her crown, you can appreciate the tufting and the fur and also the width of crown. That allows those ears to hang where they do. So if you have a wide crown, you're not going to have ear control. And if you have a properly placed crown, you're going to have ears that hang just behind the back of the eye and more match what the standard of perfection calls for. So congratulations to H2 for winning the Broken Senior Doe class in our Youth Holland Lops show tonight. Next, we're going to move on to 5 Broken Junior Bucks. Okay, not a big class, but there's some good quality towards the very top. 5th place goes to HA. He looks like a young guy, right? He's going through that kind of gangly stage where his head is longer than it is wide. His ears are also longer than his face, so they're off in proportion. He needs a little more time to probably assess him. The good things about him, though, he's upright and natural in terms of levelness of top line. He probably peaks pretty well. 4th place is 9L1, another short-bodied buck. He's a little bit overposed. That's why these back toes are touching the front legs. So it would be better to look at him with a little less posing. I'd also like to see more photos of him because I only have one to assess him on. So it's really hard to gauge, what he looks like from the front, what he looks like underneath in terms of placement of back legs. But the things on the profile side which we can assess include curvature of brow, which he's rather plain about. He gets a little abrupt right here from the top of his nose down to his cheeks, so he lacks some roundness there. And then there's about a fingernail too far back on his head, so his crown is placed farther back. And we talked about what the crown does. If you have a wide set crown, where did the photo go? If you have a wide set crown, that causes the ears to be open wide, right? This guy's got a narrower crown at the base, and that's why there's this fold right here down the center, because the ear is actually not open very wide. So the crown starts off the shape of the ear, and his crown is narrower, so therefore the base and the shape of his ear is narrow, and it kind of follows that way all the way down. So that's just a little kind of learning tool. I don't mean to emphasize it too much on this guy, but this is a good one to learn that trait from. So when you have a wide crown, it opens your ears and gives you better ear shape. Good body, by the way, in terms of roundness, but I can't definitively define that or judge him on that because of the overposing. And we are going to go down to our 4th place. That's OAK, Oak, in our Broken Junior Bucks. He looks like he's an upright buck, a little bit overextended, overposed. That's why we're seeing more daylight. Daylight is this gap here, this non-rabbit part. So like a Britannia Petite or a Belgian Hare, they are posed, and they have tons of daylight, and that's a good thing. But you don't want to see daylight in Holland Lops. So when you overpose them or pull them up too high and then extend their front legs, you get more of that daylight. With that said, this guy's got good bone. They appear very massive. They're just a little bit longer in bone. So good bone substance and diameter, but not necessarily good bone length. He has fat cheeks. He's got a good brow. These ears kind of wing out a little bit, probably because of a tightness at the base. And down to our top 3, 9L2. He's short, he's upright, he's nicely posed, but he's a little bit finer in bone. These front legs are a great way to check bone mass in any breeder rabbit, but certainly in Holland Lops, because they pick their heads up, and you can tell if they have wide front legs in terms of thickness, and they look like little bear paws. Those are a good thing. His tend to be a little bit finer. They're not as bear like or bear paw like as ideal. Ears are perpendicular to the body. They open pretty okay. Good curvature of brow. Again, a buck we only have one photo of. I wish we had photos of his front at least to see how wide his head is. I'm going to make a guess that maybe he's a little narrower right here over his nose. So those things are going to work together to keep him at third. We have two really fancy bucks to look at for 1 and 2. RL26 is our second place buck, and I went back and forth on these two bucks. I'm just going to give you a sneak peek at what won the class. This guy won. We'll talk about him in a second. This guy was second. These were two bucks that really gave me a struggle to judge in photo. They're really excellent examples of the breed. RL26 is ultimately going to go second. He's short, he's upright, he's natural. He has got a good peak over his hips. He appears to taper pretty well on his sidelines, maybe a little bit of a narrowness right here over his shoulder, but not significant by any means. Parallel back legs. Thank you again to the exhibitor for taking photos from many angles to help us assess them. That was very helpful to me tonight in going through all these photos. So body, bone, structure, those are good. I'm going to knock him a little bit on head shape over his brow and between his eyes, and on crown compared to our class winner. This crown is set a little bit farther back than ideal, and that's why he goes second. I'm going to go on a limb, but I'm going to guess that maybe the ears are also on the thinner side, but I'm not going to use that too heavily because I really can't judge it without feeling them. By the way, if you're learning about color, this is a broken sable point, and yes, it's a dark sable point right here in the ears. But sable point, if you read the standard in the a solid sable point should be cream or near white on the body. So you combine that with broken, that's why you don't really see a pattern back here. It's here, but it's just very light, and that's correct. So if you're learning about color, broken sable point will look almost white over the body because you're taking a cream rabbit and then making it broken. And while cream against white looks a lot like white, yeah, especially in a photo. Class winning buck in the broken junior bucks is HB17. And he looks like a young guy, but he's got a lot going for him. He's short, he's upright, he's natural. There are no human hands in the photo manipulating his pose because he's doing it all on his own. Wide-chested, super bear paw front legs. He's a little guy, but I mean, look at those front legs. He's got just a lot of power. Fat little cheeks, great brow. He's a baby. He's probably got some spunk to him. That's why he's got some more control on his ears than ideal. And that was one of the considerations I used when placing him against number 2. That was one thing. I was like, oh gosh, this guy's ears are not exactly perpendicular with his body. They're a little bit kicked out because he's got a tightness and immaturity about his crown. But I still ultimately used him first. I think he's just got so much bone and power and body going for him, and head shape, just that nominal trait there in a junior Holland Lop is not uncommon to see. So congratulations to HB17 on being first place in the broken junior buck class. Last class of the night, guys. There are 4 broken junior does competing. After this class, we will pick best broken, and then we'll go on to pick best of breed and best opposite sex of breed. So thanks, guys, for hanging out tonight and watching our live feed of the Youth Holland Lops judging. There were around 75 Youth Holland Lops competing tonight. Hats off to all the kids who put together the rabbits in this show, for the virtual show, for the international show. All right, we've got 4 competing. 4th place, broken junior doe, goes to HL03. She has a kind of a sloped hindquarter. Her high point is closer to her front end or over her shoulder than it is over the center of her hips, which should be ideal. She's got kind of a longer, more protruded muzzle. She's also very young, so it's hard to really gauge rabbits that are this young, but she's going to be 4th place. 3rd place, it looks like a broken blue doe. She appears to be upright. She's got a wide hip, but there's a shadow right here. My indication, or my kind of thought, is that she probably tapers on her sidelines. She probably has a little bit of a narrow shoulder. Front legs are a little bit narrower, finer in bone. Profile to the head over the brow is good, but then she gets squarer and narrower right here in her muzzle and cheeks. Another rabbit I wish we had a front end shot and other shots to look at so we could assess her better. It's unfair just to look at her profile, but that's all I got. 2nd place in our broken junior doe class is Olivia. She's a broken chin or chinchilla. Cute little doe. She's short and upright, natural, rounded nicely over her top. Ears are really wide. Look at that. Because she's got a wide crown, right? Wide crown, opens the ears nicely. They're rounded nicely at their tips. They're well furred. She has a good width and probably crown front to back. It's also placed right there at the back of the top of the eye. I believe the standard reads exactly like that or something similar to that in terms of ideal crown placement, back of the top of the eye, and she nails that. Good curvature to her brow. Another rabbit we only have one photo of, so I don't know what's going on in her front end. I would love to see her head from the front. I tend to believe she's a little narrower right here if we were to look at her front, so I'm going to kind of use my psychic abilities to score her down on head shape right there. And also her front legs. They are thick in diameter, that's a good thing, but bone is not only thickness, but also length, and her legs are a little bit longer than ideal. So that combined with my sense that her head is a little bit off in shape, keep her at number 2. Man, she's got a lot going for her in profile of body, and then superb ear and crown placement. Number 1 in the class is 9L9. So first place, Broken Junior Doe. I think she's a broken tort. She's just a lightly marked one. Again, I only have one photo. Actually, I only had one photo on pretty much all of these junior does, so they all had kind of the same level playing field to go with. This doe is short. She's upright. She's got a really good head size in proportion to her body. She's got a short, compact body, and then one part head right here, and then there's probably really 2 heads in her body. So head to body proportion is great. She's got fat cheek, good brow. Ears are a little bit farther back, maybe a bit of a narrowness and fold right here. And then she appears to have short, stumpy front legs. So congratulations to that broken junior doe. Rafferty, did you look up that placement of crown? What does it say? I've got lots of judges in the house tonight, so they are looking up stuff. And Rafferty looked up the crown in the ARBA standard of perfection and how it defines. The crown should be evaluated from side to side with wrapping from the top of the head down to just behind the top of the eye. So yes, the crown should be placed at the top of the back of the eye. Alan Rafferty is here. He's a judge, and he pulled out his standard so we could definitively say that. Okay, guys, we are going to pick Best Broken now, but before we do that, let's review our first place class winners in the Brokens. So first place, Broken Senior Buck, was this guy, and we bragged about him a lot, right? He's just the quintessence of a Holland Lop. He's massive, thick-set, short and upright, superb head, and he's doing that all on his own. He is not being manipulated by hands and being tucked and overposed and cropped, and he's just there. He's awesome. He's a bulldog by every regard. First place, Broken Senior Doe, was H2. She's short and upright. Another doe that nailed crown. We keep talking about crown placement. We just looked it up in the standard. Alan Rafferty showed me word for word. It basically says the crown on a Holland Lop shall be placed at the top or the back of the eye. And she does that so nicely. And then the ears are pendulous and perpendicular to her body. So hats off to her. She was our class winner in the Broken Senior Doe class. And then to summarize our juniors, first place, Broken Junior Buck, HB17. He is like a little bull in the making, right? Short, stumpy front legs, level top line, high head set, fat cheeks. Knocked him a little bit on ear and crown. He's got probably a tight base, which causes his ears to wing out. And if you have any experience with Holland Lop juniors, you know they are full of spunk, and they tend to wing out their ears and do all kinds of funky things they're not supposed to do when we're judging them, but they're so cute. And first place, Broken Junior Doe, was this doe we just judged. She's short and compact, upright, and she has good bone. Okay, so I bet you have some guesses as to what I'm going to do when I judge best of variety here in the Brokens, but we'll talk about best opposite sex first. Okay, it's going to be a doe. That's our senior doe. She was H2. The doe we just raved about her crown. She's best opposite sex of variety. So congratulations to her and her exhibitor for winning best opposite sex Broken tonight in the Youth Holland Lops show. And then best of variety, guys, it's hard to beat him. He's fabulous. That is the Broken Senior Buck SC11. He has so much going for him. So congratulations to those exhibitors for winning top best of variety and best opposite sex of variety in the Brokens. Okay, guys, let's pick best of breed, and then we can call it a night. Best of variety review in our solids was this junior doe who we raved about probably an hour ago by now. She is awesome. She's got lots of bone, a lot of breed character, super wide hips, good width to her crown, fat cheeks. Yeah, she's a doe I just would love to reach through the computer screen and feel. Holland Lops are one of my favorite breeds to judge, and juniors especially, and she's got a lot going for her. Okay, best opposite sex, again, in review in the solids was the Junior Buck RL23. Short and compact, nicely rounded head. The doe beat him a little bit maybe on bone and ear shape, But his ears are placed well, top of the back of the eye. They seem to be open pretty well. And look at his lower hips. They are wide, indicative here by the shape, parallel sidelines, and then look at that butt from the rear. He's got a lot going for him. So that was best opposite sex of variety in our solids. Again, best of variety was the junior doe. Okay? And in review, just very quickly, best of variety broken was the senior buck. Best opposite sex of variety broken was the senior doe. So these guys are all going against each other again. Solid winners against broken winners. All right, so hopefully you guys have had a second to think about what you would do in your minds with all the things you learned tonight about Holland Lops looking like little bulldogs, right? Big rabbits in small packages, thick front legs, fat cheeks, good brows, ears that are perpendicular to the body and pendulous that sit just behind the back of the eye, and of course back legs that are in line and parallel with the body. Okay, drum roll, drum roll. Youth winners in our youth show tonight. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you're watching live, if you watch tomorrow, if you watch next week, we appreciate you learning along with us. And of course, many thanks to all the kids that supported this show, entered from all across the country. Very sorry that your shows were swept out from you, but congrats for breeding such beautiful rabbits. Holland Lops are one of the most competitive youth breeds in our country, and they win a lot, of course, for best in shows, and even at the national level like conventions. So, good job, kids. Ready? Best opposite sex breed is our solid junior doe. She's lovely. Thick set, wide hips, great bone. She's natural. She's upright. Many, many congrats to RL25 for being best opposite sex of breed tonight in the Youth Holland Lops show and our virtual international show. And then best of breed guys, he's superb. If you ever get a chance to learn about Holland Lops or to judge Holland Lops, this is what you want to eventually find your hands on. Thick set, lots of power, bone, and substance in a compact, short package with a great top line. And he does it all so fluently and naturally. So this guy, SC11, was our broken senior buck. He is best of breed tonight. Many, many congrats to the owner and breeders of all of these rabbits, especially our top rabbits. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. I'm going to turn this around. My voice is going. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Again, I'm Alan. I'm a rabbit judge, and I'm with the Rabbit Show. And I had the pleasure this evening to judge the Youth Holland Lops show with all of you online. So thanks, coronavirus. We cannot wait for you to get out of our lives so we can all go back to rabbit shows. Have a great night and a wonderful start to your week.